Hey, what is up? Everybody, it's Odin here. It's Sunday evening. You know what that means. You know what that means. That means I'm making a video and talking and rambling and talking my shit. And I know they're sporadic. And if you don't know me by now, you will never, ever, ever know me. Ooh. If you don't know me by now, I'm sporadic. And I take my breaks and hiatuses from content and from social media, and I feel really sorry to no one about that, but there are a few people actually that I miss, and the only reason we have a friendship is because it was forged in the fire of online banter. And to those people I do miss, and I just say sorry. My absence, the more I take a hiatus from social media, the more I want to take hiatus from social media. The further away I get from it, the more I just pine to take a step back even longer. And so the durations keep getting longer and longer to where I'm like, it's not good for comic book promotion at all, but it's good for Odin in a general sense. And for that reason, you can expect more of it. And it may be unfortunate in some ways. There are several other factors as well. I've talked about this on here quite a bit. The horrible internet that I have has made streaming live with other people just maddening because of the whole lag, to where somebody makes a joke, I have a quip or an add-on to that joke, and it comes 10 seconds later, and everybody goes, what the fuck? It's not fun, and it's not fun. So I don't like doing it anymore. I miss a lot of people, but there's several other reasons that we'll get into. But first, let's talk about this. This is the page I'm working on for Kill Them Dead. Progress. It's slower than I want it to be, as per usual. I keep having things that make it harder to draw on a regular basis, but I also, I'm putting extra detail into these, even more so, and so they're taking longer, but the finished product will be even more electric. So when we started writing this book, James and I wasn't the person drawing it. And we were always joking like, oh, I feel sorry for the penciler on this. Because the pages were wild. And what we tried to add and cram into each page, I'm like, shit, good luck whoever has to draw this. And it wasn't me. Well, lo and behold, through a series of unforeseen circumstances at the time of the writing, it became me. And so now I am drawing these pages, enjoying it thoroughly, but I realize how much pressure I was putting on an artist that wasn't me is now all of a sudden the pressure on me. But in that, I'm putting a ton of detail and time into these pages, and now I don't feel sorry for the penciler because it's me, and I go, whatever, I'm having fun. But I feel sorry for Sebastian, Skunk Artworks, who is painting these after I pencil them. So I pencil these pages, he goes in and finishes them with ink and whatever he does. He has all kinds of crazy methods that he does to get from point A to point B. But here's the page, here's the pencils, and now go to town, my friend. But now I feel sorry for him because, he has to take what I've made, add his own effect, and bring out the color and life to it in a way that these pencils just can't quite do, while keeping it intact with all the detail. So I don't envy what he has to do. But that said, all of it is going to be so fucking badass because of the time and energy we're putting into it. This is a long project. When we relaunch, I don't know, but This is not something I want to rush. And it's what we did when we first launched it, and we ended up refunding everybody. It's not something I want to do. Speaking of which, we have, speaking of Skunk Artworks and campaigns, we have a big launch coming up for Skunk Artworks' solo book that he created. He wrote it, he drew it, or painted it. All hand done. He's a phenomenal, if you don't know by now, he's phenomenal. He's absolutely a brilliant artist and person. And the book that he's working on, this children's book called The Splash, is going to be just that. It's going to be a splash, and it's going to be something that anybody who is a fan of his, or just a fan of great classic children's literature and storytelling with incredible artwork, you're going to want to get this. It's beautiful. And so that will be launching soon. And once I know an exact date and an exact place and time and all that good shit, you'll all be updated and you'll know where to go to get that. But I can't recommend this enough. And I say that, obviously it's in-house. It's something I'm promoting for Broken Compass Entertainment. But even regardless of that, just what I've come to know from Skunk as an artist, as a friend, as a person, yeah, you're definitely going to want to get this. He's poured himself into it and made something fantastic that any parent would be proud to share with their children, share with other people's children, and cutting across all demographics, the truths that you want to impart to children, regardless of, political beliefs and other kind of ideologies that get crammed into people's fucking children's material. This is just tried and true stories of courage and honor and doing the right thing and facing your fears, all these great things. So it's like you can feel confident reading this to a child, any child, and not offending their parents, I guess, because it's just core elements of fundamental things that you want children to learn and become as adults. And it really does cut across demographics and ideologies. So be on the lookout for The Splash. You'll know somebody who has children, or you have children of your own, or you're just a big kid at heart and you love this great book that's going to be coming out. It'd be good for anybody. Speaking of which, I just found out a good friend of mine is expecting another child, and I thought that was really awesome when I heard that. So that was really cool. New news for me. In that situation, I'm more like an uncle, so it'd be like I get to be an uncle again, more or less. Which that time is, I think, come and gone with my siblings. I couldn't imagine any of my siblings having more kids. Like, their kids are having kids. So I'll be like, great uncle here, which I already am, but like more and more as time goes on. What else is going on? Unconditional Shove Volume 2. So I haven't gone back to the comic book shop since my last video where I dropped him off, or I think I talked about that. I can't even remember what I talked about last time. I dropped him off at the local comic book shop where she's selling them for me. Or I don't think she's actively selling them for me, but she might throw it out there to some people she thinks might be interested. She's cool like that. But she's putting them on the shelf for people to find. And I haven't been back to see. Obviously, I don't think I've sold out, or I think I would have expected a call from her, which is fine. I didn't expect to. I left 5 copies. I didn't expect to sell out, but I thought that would have been a great problem to have to run back there and give her some more. Nonetheless, sometime this week I'll go back. But that was the second printing of Unconditional Shove Volume 1. And like I've talked about, I finished up the story for Unconditional Shove Volume 2, my story, the one I'm writing and drawing. But Volume 2 is going to have more guest artists and writers. It's actually going to be more. It's going to feel more like a true anthology book with several stories and different art teams, different writers, etc. That said, I started to see pages now for the story that James is writing called Screenplay, which even the title is kind of a nod to Tales from the Crypt. Like, I think a little more, we might use a little bit of puns in the titles, a la Tales from the Crypt and things like that. But Screenplay is a great story about a struggling writer who, as a turn of events, becomes a great writer, and the reasonings for it are nefarious as well as devious and full of horror to come. So that's a great story. A little more on the humor side in all the great ways. It's James writing it, so if you've read Magnificent Bastards, which James put out, you'll know it's going to be funny as hell. But the same artist, Sketch 51, Bob, who is working on Magnificent Bastards 2, is also doing the art on Screenplay. And I saw a couple pages already, and I'm like, fuck yeah, this is looking great. Perfectly captured, perfectly encapsulated, because I've seen the script, and there was a time when it's like, well, you know, there's always that struggle of like, do we want to pay another artist where I could just do it? But I'm working so hard on Kill Them Dead, and I was at the time working on Shove 2 and stuff. And I may still draw another story in Shove 2. There's a very likely chance. But we're trying to make it more collective, you know, like all communist style. No, not communist style. But we're trying to make it more collective, more creative sources coming together to make an anthology. So yeah, that looks really cool. So we're continuing to grind on that. Need to bug a few people to get things kind of like finalized on stories and what they're doing, and finding art teams for them and stuff. There's no real art team because it's all black and white, really artist for each story. Because we're not doing color. We did color as an option for Unconditional Shove Volume 1, and a lot of people love it. And Damir Rosic, who did the covers, was phenomenal. He was great to work with. And it was an 82-page book. And if you wanted full color, you got full color. And I've seen some grumblings. I'm not even going to talk about who. Everyone either knows who, or if you don't, it's not really something I want to name names, I guess. But somebody who made, nearly $60,000 on their campaign, advertising it as full color, and then at the last minute saying, well, I don't have money to pay for color, because they had issues with the colorists they were working with, etc. And these things happen. I understand that. But saying I don't have the money to pay for a colorist was interesting to me, in the sense, again, like, I don't know all the ins and outs of a person's life and what they got going on. So I'm not the type to do hot takes or pass judgment, but all I can say is I raised just under $6,000 on Unconditional Shove on my campaign, and delivered 82 pages of colored comic book to people who paid for that. And the difference between 56,000, I don't know what you made. It was at least 55,000, and 5,000 to 6,000, where I was sitting, is a drastic difference. And so, in that sense, it didn't compute with me. I don't understand. I did back that campaign, but as a fan of black and white artwork, I mean, if there was a black and white option, I probably did that anyway. It doesn't bother me on a consumer level like that. The only reason it bothers me on a consumer level is something was promised, taken away, and in my mind, the funds were there to make it happen. So that's all I can speak to is just that. Hey, I had a $5,500 campaign. Actually, it was like $5,200. So when I say shy of 6,000, it was pretty shy of 6,000. Let's say a $5,000 campaign and a very big book, 82 pages to color, and I was able to get it done. I almost want to reach out to the guy and be like, here's the colorist I got. Here was his rates. You should be able to find the coin to pay that, And he had great rates, but nonetheless, at 30 page or 82 pages, that was it was a chunk of the campaign money. But I was willing to pay it to get the book out in color as was promised. So I would say it was a little over half of what we raised went to the colors. But the other thing is I have a full-time job, This isn't my living. If it's my livelihood and I said all the money I raised, well, obviously I wouldn't be able to live. Not making that much. But all the money I raised goes to me to live, to buy food, to pay rent, to pay whatever. Well, then I'd be in a lot of trouble. But then even 5,500 wouldn't, or 55,000 wouldn't be enough really, unless I did a couple of those a year, for me personally. So yeah, it's like, but on the same hand, having a full-time job, my books take a little longer because I can't just spend all of my time doing this like as if it was my 9 to 5, I have that. Or it's not even 9 to 5, it's more or less 7 to 6, but that's, everybody has their conundrum to face, but you also have to face the music if fans and backers are unhappy because you promised something and didn't deliver that something, or a little bit of bait and switch. Even if there's lots of reasons, at the end of the day, they're excuses. And you either do it or don't do it, and everyone has a complete justifiable right to complain if they're not happy with the direction it went. So that was something that came up recently, and it's just my 2 cents on it as a fellow creator, especially a fellow creator who doesn't make as much on my campaigns. The other thing is too, like when it is your livelihood and your campaigns take as long as they do, like I'm taking a long time. I get it. Shove 2, it'll be 2 years of cycle from when we launched the first one to when we launched the second one, and about a year of cycle between delivering the first one to launching the second one. I get that. That's not ideal. It's not what I want. But I can't make a living on this. I have children to feed. I have, my shit to take care of. So I need a full-time job. Sure. And you ask anyone. Anyone who knows me knows I would rather do this full-time. Absolutely. It'd be great. But there's not enough money in it. And the people who are making that kind of money, more power to them. And if I got to that level, I would certainly be more productive than I am now. I would have to be. It would drive me insane if I wasn't. So all those things, those are real things. And as such, both James, Sebastian, and myself all work full-time jobs with families, and try to be as productive as we possibly can and make as many books as we possibly can. And even though I haven't been on live streams very much and doing that whole thing, try to be a presence as much as we can. despite having full-time jobs and families and all these things. And a lot of people have that, and everybody has to account for their own time and what they do with it. It's not my business, but as a consumer, it kind of becomes my business. And so as a creator, I can understand a consumer being like, I liked Unconditional Shove, but it takes too long to get the second issue. Fair enough, that's your call. Luckily, Unconditional Shove is a anthology, so it's not like you're waiting to hear the rest of the story. They're all contained stories. They're short stories. So, and part of the reason I did that was for that very reason. Like, I don't think I could keep up with a continuing series because I'll be sporadic with it. Anywho, that's all that. So as I talked about being sporadic, I talked about hiatus. And I mentioned internet issues. Well, there's more than just that. So as I've talked about moving to Missouri and what that's looked like, and what I realized was after Father's Day and after my birthday was there's a strong sense of loneliness that had crept into my life, my demeanor. Just my overall person was kind of like stuck in this lonely mire, if you will. I moved out here for my children's sake, and no regrets at all about doing that. But I've had very mixed feelings about the state of Missouri and about my situation here. And a lot of the mixed feelings come from that struggle of loneliness. So, as I say, I haven't been on streams because, internet issues. That's very valid. But there was also a sense of, not the cheery Odin that you might remember. And not necessarily wanting to live almost vicariously with just internet friends, And as one of my best friends put it so coarsely and bluntly and honestly and correctly, so it sounds like you just need to get your balls drained. And I said, well, I don't think you're wrong there. I don't think you're wrong. But as such, I am not the type to just make that happen, even if it's possible to just make happen, which is definitely possible. I could make that happen. There was another element besides that, which is also relational. Now, as it'd be nice to have like a friend group or something like that, physically in person. I also said, well, it'd be nice to have companionship as well. So all this hemming and hawing, what I'm getting to is that I threw myself out there into the world, the oft scrutinized and stigmatized world of online dating again. And as such, as always, again, met with mixed results. But fairly quickly, I met somebody that I really, really enjoy their company and had a moment, a spark. Something special was brewing between us. And regardless of what happens and what the future holds, because it's still very new, she is a very beautiful, talented, intelligent, and awesome woman. So that is also in a tale older than time, as a man meets a woman and sparks fly, as they were. He does get a little distracted from other areas of his life, as does she, I'm sure. And as we're both parents, we go, yeah, every moment we can get away from our responsibilities and have together, we've been doing that as it's been growing this early stages. And I have often been very understanding to friends that do that, where other people are like, fucking guy, just chasing pussy, and then now we never see him again, And I'm like, dude, it happened to you when you first met your wife or whatever, if you're married and you've been married for 20 years, yeah, you get pissed off when your single friend finds somebody because they all of a sudden are trying to build something that you've had for 30 years. Whereas, you've been married 30 years, you kind of go like, hey, I'm going to go do this with the friends. And she's like, good. I was kind of hoping you'd get out of the house for a moment. You have that length of time to like really, you know everything about each other, all this stuff. So in the early stages of this, you're always seeking to find out more about somebody. You're intrigued, whatever it is, You find them very attractive, not just physically, but you find them attractive, and you say, well, what's deep down? What is this thing that's really intriguing and attractive to me? And so as you start looking and getting to know them, that just like increases the intrigue because you're also contemplating potential futures and things like that. Now, this is still very new, so I'm trying not to like put the cart before the horse or anything, but I'm explaining, hey, this shit happens when you find somebody you like and you decide that you kind of like spending time with them. You end up doing that. And other things that occupied your attention before when you were a little more, when you weren't in that mode, I guess, they don't go by the wayside, but they definitely, they take a bit of a back seat, and it just happens. So, thank you for being understanding. And as I think about it too, like the time that I have talked about exes on here as at one time or another, they were, important in my life. I was married for 10 years. Obviously, that was a big chunk. We have kids together. That's a very important thing to me. So that ex has a lot of tie-in to my current day life. And then just before I came out into this comic book and online world that I'm talking to now, and people that I've met, some of you watch these videos have known me longer, but most of you have just met me in the past couple of years when I started, saying, hey, I'm making this comic book. I want to get to know other comic book creators. I'm out here doing the thing. But right before that, I was engaged, and we were together for several years as well. So as I've been in here, people have heard me talk about exes or something. But as such, most of you who've only known me from that world have only known Odin as a single man. As a single man. That could change soon. But what is definitely happening is, like I said, I miss something, and I really want to get it back. And as much as my friend hit it right on the head when he said you just need to get your balls drained, I also recognize that there is something more than just that I needed in my life. And not that I needed it, and that's the other thing to point out. This past almost 3 years that I've been single, I've felt fine, and I've had a lot to distract me. I've been working on these comic books, writing and recording music for Kill Them Dead, writing comic books. I've been moving halfway across the country, starting a new job. So, yeah, a lot to keep myself occupied in this time. But as such, that doesn't mean I don't have a pulse. I don't have the desire for that companionship. Because while most idiot guys are talking about whether they're alpha males or beta males. I've always considered myself a lone wolf, which is neither alpha nor beta. It's just a lone wolf. And speaking of which, as guys announce themselves as alpha males, you can make sure, or be totally sure, that they are absolutely not an alpha. Would never have to announce it to anybody. I look at the guys who have people following them, and if people are following some man or woman, that is alpha characteristics, and it may not be what, like a lot of guys, it's basically just them being assholes, and they're like, well, I'm kind of an alpha, you know. You're kind of a dick, that's all it is. You're not an alpha by any stretch, because nobody's following you anywhere. But the other side of that is I've always felt way more like lone wolf, and I always went, that's way cooler anyway. I don't really want people following me. But I always thought the idea of being a lone wolf was like the coolest thing ever. Except in the immortal words of Norm Macdonald, except at wolf picnics, when you don't have a partner for the wolf wheelbarrow races. That's the one time it sucks being a lone wolf. But that said, I've never had a whole lot of problem being alone. But it did strike me, and I said, you know, it's something you should do something about. And it'd take a very specific type of personality to work with that. And so when you jump into that world of online dating, it's very hard to find that personality. Because typically it's just desperate women in my age group. And so anyway, all that to circle around to say, this woman I met's very awesome. I feel very good about where things are going, but I don't know the future. So I will stop short of saying much more than that. But that is part of the explanation for a little bit of disappearance from Odin in the realms of online comic book creators and people that I've met in this world. And I just hope that no one takes it as a slight towards them, because the friends that I've made here, I really do care about, and I've always loved hanging out with all of you. And so between the internet issues and that other thing, that's why. What else is going on though? So I had my youngest this weekend. Had a good time. Oh, by the way, I'm constantly scratching my legs because, again, as I talk about the good and bad of moving here, I've heard of these things, but where I'm from, they're not a real thing. And so now I have a new least favorite animal on this planet, and it's called Chiggers. And I'm battling them for the past like 2 or 3 weeks. They have eaten me alive. The itch is like 10 mosquito bites, and it's driving me crazy. So if you see me like just scratching at myself like a dog with fleas, no, I'm a human with chiggers. That's the thing. My manager at work, he's a very outdoors kind of guy, as is everyone at my work, it seems like. But he was like, "Oh yeah, if you go hiking, it's gonna happen." And I'm like, "Well, it hasn't happened yet, so maybe it won't." And it finally did, and I went, "You weren't fucking joking, dude. These things are annoying." So anyway, that's a new thing. Well, so I had my daughter, my youngest, this weekend, and we went on a nature hike where I probably got plenty of more chigger bites, you know, but it's not going to keep me from going outside. I can't think that I'm like everybody else is outdoors. Why can't I be? Now, I can use permethrin or DEET or any of that shit, but I hate using that stuff. It's chemicals and shit, but But they say you can like spray your clothes with it. I'm like, yeah, it keeps ticks and chiggers away. So maybe I'll do that. Like get some permethrin, dilute it, spray my clothes before I go hiking. But that seems like a lot of work. If I want to go hiking, I just want to go. So anyway, the girl and I, and it was kind of like a pretty easy local trail that was really well mapped out and stuff. So it wasn't bad. A lot of people out there too, because it's really basically in Springfield, but it's like a nature conservatory area, but it's pretty big. A lot of hiking trails in there. And then we went and watched the new movie Twisters. Twisters, because as I discussed in here, like this spring we had my inundation with tornadoes, or initiation too, but initiation with tornadoes. Then I got like fascinated with them, and her and I watched the original Twister with Bill Paxton and everything, and Helen Hunt, which isn't that great of a movie. It's not bad, but it's 90s Hollywood, and this one, Twisters, is modern day Hollywood. It's just what it is. They're entertaining, but they're not anything special. But because her and I watched that, I didn't even know they were making a new one. We watched that because I was like, oh yeah, I'm all like, when the movie Twister came out, I was like, and it was a blockbuster movie, and that was back in the late 90s, and I was just like, why? Who gives a shit about, why are we making movies about tornadoes? That sounds stupid. Like, I just didn't think like it sounded like a good premise, but it was a big movie, and I was like, okay, whatever. I'd never seen it, and then I was like, well, maybe I'll watch it with my daughter. We were just looking for something to watch, and there it was, and so I was like, oh, let's watch it. And we enjoyed it. It wasn't, like I said, it's 90s Hollywood. It wasn't anything special or bad. It was just what it is. Quite predictable, over the top. The acting is very scripted. It doesn't feel very, I was going to say artistic, but that's not the right word. I don't know. It just seems Hollywood. That's all. So we go see the new one, and more or less, like I said, it's as advertised. It's a modern version of the same fucking thing. I mean, the story is different, but it's not that much different. And the love story in it was a little bit better than the first one, because the first one was really all over the place, kind of annoying. I do like Bill Paxton. I didn't like him in that role. I like Helen Hunt in that role, but I don't like her in a lot of other ones. So there's that. The new one, my daughter was pointing out, and she's young, but she's astute. She's like, yeah, could they make the lead man any more perfect? She's like, he had 0 flaws. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. Because it's like moments where he's like, oh yeah, and I also have mastered this, and I'm also this. It's just like, way to make him like way too obvious. So, but they did the same with the girl. But the guy's like the male Mary Sue, and the girl's the Mary Sue. They're just a match made in heaven, I guess. But whatever. It was a nice little popcorn movie with my daughter. But the only reason we really went was because we watched that first one together and enjoyed it. We watched that at home, and then I was like, oh shit, they're making a new one. And it was just a few months ago that we watched the other one. So I don't know if I can recommend it per se, but like I said, it's like halfway decent popcorn movie. There's tons of cheese, tons of stupidity, a lot of over the top. The tornado action, just like the first one, is over the top. Cows flying by and everything. But it's Hollywood. Like, you don't want a boring tornado in Hollywood. It would defeat the purpose. Let's see. I don't know that there's much else to talk about. Oh, we didn't talk about this. I've been rewatching Twin Peaks. Now, I remember when the show came out, and I wasn't all that interested in it. As a kid, I was a kid when it came out. And I remember my mom watching it for a little while. I think she got bored with it. Maybe it was a little over her head. But I remember finding it intriguing, the little bits I did watch. And then I never rewatched it or never took a chance on it again. Even though I've enjoyed David Lynch movies, you know, as an adult, basically since as a young adult. I was watching Blue Velvet and Lost Highway and Wild at Heart. I watched all these Lynch movies and enjoyed them. But when it came to Twin Peaks, I was just like, I'll watch it eventually, maybe. And yeah, now was the time. Finally, 45 years old. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll give it a shot. It's a great show, by the way. I think anybody who's ever watched it found it to be a great show. It's got all the Lynch elements, but it's also it's got a lot of soap opera elements, which are kind of like they keep the story going, but I could do without them. A lot of the who's sleeping with who kind of stuff. It's like, yeah, I get it. It's part of the story. It's part of what drives things. Obviously, I was just talking about the relationship between male and female and how that, does things to a person. So, yeah, obviously it's a very profound element of humanity. So you got to write it into stories quite often. But it's a little over dramatic in Twin Peaks. But everything is. And it's part of what I loved about it. So I'm almost done with the full series. I don't know how it ends. People who've watched it all, don't tell me. But, it all felt like it was building to something, and then that something gets resolved, and then it's all building to something else. But there's always tons of hanging storylines, which is what makes it very intriguing, is because you have through storylines that interweave and connect, but they're always like hanging. And so just when you think you've got it figured out, it takes a turn, But that's with like 20 different storylines all just hanging at the same time while each episode goes along. The problem with that is I wonder if there's ever going to be resolution to all this. I'm like, this is fascinating storytelling because of that, but I'm also like, I don't know that there's any way to resolve this. And if you do, then it almost pisses you off because you're like, well, no amount of resolution would feel good enough for all this craziness and buildup. And that is the real problem with dramatic series like this, where you have all these questions and all this intrigue built in, and who's doing what and who's on what side and what secrets do they have, and all these interweaving stories. There's no real way to resolve it. And that's the only problem. I've always loved short stories, and part of the reason I love short stories is because the resolution is the point, not the build-up as much. And, I don't want to say the build-up, but not all the detail. So with a short story, your twist ending is really the key to everything. Whereas you're writing this series like Twin Peaks with all these interactive storylines that are, like I said, they're always hanging and full of intrigue. The resolution will never do justice to how much electricity you've built with all this storyline. So you kind of just write it into a wall and then a series ends. So I don't think there's 2 seasons and I've only got like 2 or 3 more episodes. And I'm like, I don't think there's a way that this will all wrap up in a nice, neat little package and everybody's happy. And if they were able to do that, everybody would be mad that they did that. So that's just the nature of the difference between short stories and series. And that's why I like anthologies, because it's like you never have that happen. It's just, here's the characters, and they may have all these interweaving storylines that, but you never know about them. You can write that in as a backstory, but you can't write much more than just it being like a hinted at or a backstory, because you don't have the time to flesh it out. So you're just saying, like, here's an intriguing fellow. He's probably ex, Green Beret, or ex, whatever their backstory is that's very intriguing. You just have to like hint at it. You can't just overly explain it, and you just say, and that's why you use archetypical characters, because people already know what they're getting. So it's just a different thing. I will say, with Twin Peaks, especially season 1, season 2, he didn't really change, but his relationship with the whole situation changed. But Agent Cooper, Dale Cooper in Twin Peaks, is one of the most phenomenal characters ever created. He was absolutely brilliant in season 1. Season 2, he's been great, but not quite as compelling. But he did have one great line that, not that there's really a way to spoil the show, but this one has no spoilers at all. It just cracked me up. There was a DEA agent who becomes a cross-dresser. Well, he's coming into town. They all assume he's the man that they've all known. And then when he gets there, he's dressed in women's clothing with a wig. And it's David Duchovny, who's, Mulder from X-Files. And he's always dressed in women's clothes, and he's like, that's the life he's chosen. And then there's a scene where Agent Cooper is talking to this gal, and she walks off, and David Duchovny, the cross-dressing guy, the DA agent, he's like, ooh, how old is she? And he's like, I thought maybe you weren't into women now that you dress as one. And he's like, well, you know what? I still put on my pants one leg at a time, if you know what I mean. And Agent Cooper says, no, I don't, as he closes the door on him. And that was just a great Agent Cooper line. No, I don't. I still put on my pants one leg at a time, if you know what I mean. No, I don't. Anyway, great show. I've really enjoyed it. I just fear that by the end of it, I'll do like most people, just want more, knowing that there's no resolution. Like, if you can do more, it would just create more abstract story that's not going to ever be resolved. But again, that's the intrigue. That's what you like. So, but really enjoyed it. I'm glad I finally got a chance to watch it again, fully and as an adult. Because I can't remember when it came out, but I was pretty young. But I remember, it caught a lot of people's interest at the time. And a lot of people talked a lot about Twin Peaks. But what I remember people talking about was how abstract it was. And then later, learning about David Lynch and his films, I was like, well, of course it's going to be abstract. Like, he never made a normal film or series or anything, So yeah, highly recommend if you can watch it, if you haven't yet. If you have, you're probably like, what took you so long? Why didn't you watch it before? But very good show. Other than that, I think that's about it. I could probably talk about other shit, but we're coming up on about an hour, about 50 minutes, so we'll wrap it up. What is that? Not happy with my hair. I don't know if I said this earlier, but I really do feel like I'm starting to look like a damn hippie. hair this long. What the hell? I used to have a lot longer hair. But I try not to mention it to people because I don't want to be that guy. So when I was young and had long hair, there was every old guy I met, they're like, oh, I used to have long hair too, you know, and you're like I give a shit, you know? You cut it. Who cares? But you hear that like all the time. Every old guy was like, it was down to my ass crack. Like, I had long hair, man. You don't even know. And I'm like, I don't even care. So when I meet young men now, I'm like, don't tell them about your old days when you had long hair. Because I did. I think most of my adult life, well, maybe about half, probably a little over half, I had long hair or dreadlocks or something, you know, so it's like, well. So it's definitely a tongue-in-cheek thing for me to say I look like a damn hippie with hair this long, but it kind of like, there's phases. Like, if I wanted to have long hair again, I would have to go through these phases where I just don't like it to get there. But I think I'm keeping it short, so now that it's in one of those phases, I got to get it cut. So that's going to happen soon. But anyway, we'll end with that. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, as per usual, I truly hope that you're facing all of your obstacles and trials in life with confidence, courage, strength of character, and a great sense of care and love for the ones you do love, the ones that are surrounded with you in your life that you've been charged to take care of and to love. Take great care with those souls, because there's nothing more daunting and more fulfilling than handling another human soul. The handling of another human soul. So take great care with it. Even the strongest people can be fragile in their innermost self, and in that's why we treat people with dignity and respect that is common to men, but especially the ones, like I said, that you're charged with loving and taking care of. But all those things: strength, courage, confidence, power, kindness. I'm trying to think of all these virtuous things I could say, virtual things. I think I'm getting tired, or else I wouldn't be stumbling so much with this final thought. But all of that will come back to the same thing. Do it with integrity, utmost integrity. Do everything with integrity, and like I said, I think time will prove you right, and you'll be able to sleep better at night. Till next time, Odin here. Thank you for joining me. Sorry if I've been aloof and away from some of y'all. Again, don't take it personally. I really do appreciate you, but I've got the life outside of the video YouTube world that is pressing, and if that falls apart, you won't see me at all. So so if you want to see me at all, be happy that trying to take stock of the things that need taken care of in my life. So anyway, until next time, really appreciate you guys. Have a good one. We'll see ya.